So you know how Marcus Garvey once said that if you don't believe in yourself, then you are twice as defeated in the race of life? Well, I felt defeated in 2024 because boy did I doubt myself every step of the way. I kept on thinking that, you know, there's a million and one different content creators all saying the same things. I have nothing to add, and so that held me back from creating content, from yapping, which I truly love. So for 2025 I was like, who cares? I don't care about no big three, it's just big me. So the league phase table is over, and this recommends to me that the sport is washed because we're now having a knockout phase playoffs. 8 teams have already qualified for the round of 16, while 16 other teams will battle out for the 8 final spots. I will offer, of course, my tactical analysis, my insights, and the main purpose of this video, my predictions. Let's start Brest, who finished 18, versus PSG, who finished 15. And if you watch League One, we've seen this matchup a million different times. Head-to-head, PSG have won 17 out of the last 19 games they've played against Brest. Their most recent win was a 5-2 win over them. So of course, we are gonna say PSG is to win. But I still want to talk about each team fairly and give each team a chance to prove that they can make the next round. So for Brest, they've had trouble scoring goals. They don't score a lot of goals. They're not the most attacking front-footed team. They do make a lot of defensive recovers and tackles. However, they're not the most defensively structured, and that is they are a very young team with an inexperienced manager who was once a sporting director. So of course both those things wouldn't see a result so quickly, and not to down on them, because they've done quite well so far in the Champions League with 4 wins and 3 losses. And better teams have had worse record than them. So let's move on to their Champions League season. Started off very poorly. If you remember, a narrow 1 win over Girona, which was by an own goal. They suffered defeats from Arsenal, Atletico Madrid, Bayern Munich, and these games showed a defensive problem that PSG has always suffered with. Their backline is very weak, and any front attacking team who press hard will break down that midfield and that backline. Now the turnaround came against some of the most not so good teams like Stuttgart and Salzburg, and of course their electrifying 4-2 win over Manchester City after they were 2-0 down before half. And this is all in praise to Luis Enrique. Now, one thing I do not like about the PSG and his coaching is that sometimes when he deploys the 4-3-3 isn't helpful. He does not get the best out of the attackers. It limits their ability to go forward. Sometimes we see him go with the 4-4-2, which offer more width and can give him a more fluid front three, and they have a ton load of options going forward. So he does not stay with one consistent front three, or they interchange, whether that's coming off the bench or starting the game. Of Sporting next up, finished 23rd, and Dortmund, who finished 10th. This is a tricky one because personally I would like Sporting to win, but in realistic views this is a Dortmund win setup. It could be either way, but let's talk about why I say so. So Sporting, they've had a roller coaster of a Champions League season. You know, they went from Ruben Amorim's back 5 to now settling for Borges 4-4-2, and so it's a dynamic change for the team, and they slowly but surely are getting back there. Now they score a lot of goals with the like of Gyökeres leading the line. He's one of the best young strikers in Europe today, and so he's always an option for them no matter what. They've also conceded the same amount of goals that they score, so they have high intense end-to-end games, and it's just amazing to watch them at time. Now they failed to beat Arsenal Brugge due to their interim manager's inexperience, and so they lost a little bit of momentum during that time because Ruben Amorim would have left for Manchester United. And when Borges stepped in, he would have come to save the Champions League season with draws against Bologna and PSV. Dortmund. Now, coming off a Champions League final high, Dortmund are looking to come back and to make it known that they can compete. However, they go ahead and bottle a 2-0 lead against Real Madrid, the same team they lost in the final months prior. And both those games, their performances were very poor. I was disappointed in the fact that they could not get it over the line. Now, they've had an easy draw game. I think they have the easiest set of opponents, so it's expected for them to beat the likes of Celtic, Storm Graz, and Zagreb. Like, of course, who would suffer defeat against Barcelona and Bologna. And this is where the problem with Dortmund is. They press a lot. They like to have a lot of possession off the ball, and for teams who play attacking or counter attacking football, this is where they cannot defend those transitions and they are gonna succumb to a loss. And so in this moment, you would say the big team players have to step up. I mean, Grassi, he is the highest leading goal scorer in the Champions League at the moment, and so to make his name ring even more, I'm looking for a big performance from him and other team members. 20, let's move on. Juventus versus PSV, who finished 14th. Again, UEFA, we just saw this game 4 months ago, back in September. This format is not working in the case of our giving different teams chances, and we're gonna ruffle things up. It's boring. Around 26 in goals scored in the competition. That was a disappointing stat to read because it shows that they are horrible going forward, despite having such creative, whether that's in the midfield or in forward. And they've scored 9 goals so far, so I'm not expecting a goal thriller from Juventus coming into this 2-legged round. It may change, it may or may not. Thiago Motta prefers a very structured defense, so he often opts to suffocate the creativity of his team to ensure that they don't concede. Isn't the point to win the game and not draw, but not by his standards. And so games against Benfica and Aston Villa, where he deployed the 4-2-3-1, it clearly showed that it's not working. You are susceptible to more goals being and more shots coming into your box. And so whenever he switches to the 4-4-2, it works effectively and they score more goals, which when Juventus turn on the goal scoring machine, it's fun. So moving on to PSV. Now, they beat Liverpool in the final game day, which in the grand scheme of things meant nothing in terms of their progression or Liverpool's demise, but it also shows that they can beat the bigger teams and they are a good team and they're not to be underestimated. They've held PSG and Sporting to draws, which they were really good in, and they are forced to be reckoned with. Now, they have a very talented squad with the players like Tillman, Joan Bakayoko, Noah Lam. Yeah, so and these are some of my favorite players to watch. So I'm so excited to see over 2 legs if they can at least get something away from Juventus. Peter Bosz has managed to do so far so good with them. It's only up from here. Moving 22nd place, Manchester City versus 11th place, Real Madrid. Now, this is the 7th meeting in 9 years between these two teams. Again, UEFA, I am tired. It is getting old. Now, City, granted, have walked out with more wins, but it has always been an equal matchup since they have 5 draws between them. Now, to point on City a bit, now City has had a poor form in both the Champions League and the Premier League. You know, they've only won 3 games out of the 8 games in the Champions League, which is crazy. Normally, if they'd done this in the group stage fixture, they would have gone through and scammed the place, but no, they have to work hard. After the 5-0 thrashing versus Sparta, you know, they went on to lose against Sporting, Juventus, PSG. You know, they were unconvincing against Feyenoord with that goal fest draw. And it shows you that Manchester City are having a crumble of and most of the games that they end up scoring first, they lose. I think that's the problem. But no, the problem lies in the coaching of Pep Guardiola. He's not above criticism. It also stands into the fact that they have a lot of injuries and a lot of key players out, but at the end of the day, it's the coach's job to get the best out of what he has, and Manchester City has more than enough talent to make it right. We're asking, who are Real Madrid in the playoffs? Well, they're another terrible team who in previous years would have performed really bad and then somehow make the round of 16, scam their way entire final. But no, joking. We saw it against games against Lille, at AC Milan, Atalanta. The weakness of Real Madrid, their midfield is running out of breath. Their defense, this is my pick with Ancelotti this season. He could open his mouth and request for transfers, but however he likes to use midfielders as centre backs, and these midfielders aren't even defensive midfielders, so they won't do a good job defending. So the failure to make defensive signings are going to come and bite them at some point. Is it against Manchester City? I don't know. You have the likes of Rudiger, Militao, Carvajal. Like at this point the entire backline is out, and I would love to see how both these teams favor against each other. Moving on to the 24th place team, Club Brugge versus Atalanta, who finished 9th. Now Brugge, they've beaten Sporting and Aston Villa, and that's the highlight of their campaign, and it goes to show that they are not to be underestimated. Now their 4-2-2-1 layout hasn't been the best thing that they can do as a club to get the best out of the players that they have and the limited options that they have, because they don't have much attacking options going forward, and that's a problem against a team like Atalanta, who they are going to score a ton of goals. So the only way to beat them is to also score a ton of goals. Speaking of Atalanta, now this is one of my favorite teams to watch in Europe at the moment. They are amazing. I think they should have, qualified for the round of 16 already. You guys are not supposed to be here, but again, the change in the format has given this team a wake-up call. You are not safe. Work your ass off and you will get there. So they are the 3rd highest scoring team in the Champions League at the moment. The draws against Arsenal, Celtic and Barcelona were pretty poor displays, but it happens. Good teams have off these, and I do think those draws really, because even though they score a lot of goals, they find it hard to break down teams at times, and so they get flustered and they run up, and Gasperini runs out of ideas. And as I said, it happens. It's just a bad day in the office. Now they're very good on the ball and in possession, and that's something that Club Brugge would have to take note of. They're gonna have a lot of the ball, and so the only way you win this game is if you take over from Atalanta, which other teams have done and walked away with a draw. Now the list is long. They have incredible players, attacking midfielders, forwards, wingers. They are just, it's just a good team, guys, and I'm in love with this team. I'm so sorry that Ademola Lookman is not gonna be in the Champions League for a while. I do think he would have been amazing for a matchup like Celtic versus Bayern. So Celtic had okay performances against Atalanta, Club Brugge. They concede a lot of goals. They're not the most exciting teams to watch, but they can pull off something. I do think Bayern wins this and goes through. Bayern, they've had some okay performances. I don't think this is one of their best Champions League campaigns. The games against Barcelona, Villa and Feyenoord showed that they can be defeated because of their horrible defense. They also run out of attacking ideas at times. And company, he switches between the 4-2-3-1 formation, gets a little bit of output from the attackers. The 4-2-2-2, and so far they've only kept 2 clean sheets in the competition, so they are bound to concede either that's first, and it will give Celtic a false hope that we're gonna win, but Bayern is gonna get it over the line some way, Monaco versus Benfica. Now Monaco has beaten Barcelona, they've beaten Aston Villa. They can get it done. They are an exciting, young, talented team. They have a very good squad, so it's not outside of them to get something off, but I'm pulling towards Benfica to qualify. And for Benfica, they've had an incredible display against teams such as Atletico Madrid. The game against Barcelona 3 games in the league format, losing 2, so that shows you that they are on the up and out. You know, they've had incredible players such as, I cannot have these names, sorry, but they also have, Benfica is known to have talented attackers. And last but definitely not least, we have Feyenoord versus AC Milan. Now, they've defeated Girona, Benfica, Bayern Munich. I keep a clean sheet to save their life, though they are bound to concede, so that's an issue for them going forward in this game. They also have some really good players in whether that's attacking or defense and midfield. They're just not the most prolific team ever. AC Milan now in Syria and Champions League, their display has been very awful. They've had a cluster of a season. You know, they could have had a better campaign if the board had done better and wiser recruitment. That would help. You know, they've scored less than their opponents in most of the games that they've played. Rangers is on fire. He's one of the most promising parts of watching AC Milan to watch, despite having all this exciting talent. But I won't count them out. I do think they win one of the games in the legs, but I am saying Feyenoord to go through. So to give my overall prediction, I do think PSG get the better of Brest, but I do think Brest has something incredible to pull out against them. Go either of them on the day, but I'll be edging towards Real Madrid. Juventus versus road, so I do think PSV gets something in one of the legs, but Juventus goes through. Sporting versus Dortmund, I would love for Sporting to pull off an amazing performance and find back their rhythm, but Dortmund is also a team, a caliber above them, so I do think Dortmund takes the I'm automatically going with Atalanta. Feyenoord versus Milan. Don't fight me, guys, but hear me out. I do think Feyenoord, because they have beaten some of the best teams in the competition so far, and they've also held Man City at a draw. I do think they get something from Milan and eventually might qualify. Celtic, but anything could happen. It's the Champions League, but I'm going for a Bayern win from them, but not counting them out. However, Benfica has such an array of talent. They get it across the line. Those are my predictions.